Hey everybody, this is Dr. William Clark here for Leadership Conversations. This is the show where we talk about leadership according to the world that matters to you. I wanted to take a few moments to talk with you about how to lead with and through effective communication. So Josh Steinmel, he wrote an article about how to lead through and with effective communication. And he wrote this for Entrepreneur Magazine. And when I read this article, it really brought me back to the days when I used to teach communication skills for leaders, for master students. And many people do not realize the importance of communication, particularly as they step into a leadership role. Now, some believe that once they step into a leadership role, they are automatically due respect, and people should automatically understand what they're saying at all times. That is not true. That is not how communication works. No matter what leadership role you have or don't have, it doesn't matter what role you play in the organization. Communication is something you have to consistently and constantly work at to ensure that your message is being communicated to the team at all times. Now, communication lies at the feet of the leader. I'm not saying it ends with you, but it lies at your feet. And what I'm getting at here when I make that comment is, if you have an expectation for your team to communicate well, to be awesome communicators, to clearly state or convey the message that they want to share with you or with your customers, it lies at your feet. And ultimately, that responsibility of jumpstarting communication in your organization, jumpstarting effective communication within the team, with customers, with stakeholders, it begins with the leaders setting that tone. Okay, so let me just share a couple of things here with you. I'm not going to share all the points that Josh outlines here, but I just want to share a few that really stood out to me and I believe would be helpful to your leadership as well. One of the things Josh points out is to say what you mean and mean what you say. There are a lot of people who say words, but those words that come out of their mouth are not the words that they were thinking about or the words that they intended to convey their message. And as a result of the disconnect between what's in their mind versus what comes out of their mouth, what actually comes out of their mouth is what's interpreted and heard, but is not what is actually meant. Okay, as a leader, you have to think what you want to say, and you have to say what you're thinking. Now, some people struggle with saying what they think in a tactful, respectful way, and I understand that. I tend to opt for just letting it come out and letting me and the person I'm communicating with deal with the unfiltered version of what I'm thinking about and what is going through my mind. The reason I tend to use that strategy, particularly in relationships that I've developed with team members or my immediate reports or direct reports, is because you get the unfiltered version, you get the raw truth of what actually is going through my mind. Now, there are always better ways to convey the unfiltered truth. And what I've discovered over my career is that finding better ways to say the unfiltered truth comes through trial and error. Sometimes you can work so hard in your mind to say what you believe to be the truth in the most tactful, respectful way possible that you really don't convey anything that you really meant to say. And so it may be helpful that especially in the context of a really solid relationship, that you give the information you have to share in an unfiltered way. This includes bad news about projects, whether we missed our deadline or we went over budget, or what if someone has been someone's been terminated or resigned? What if the customer is backed out? What if you as the leader dropped the ball? Conveying that truth in its unfiltered version is most helpful in many cases, and people will appreciate the unfiltered truth more than you think. The flip side of telling the unfiltered truth, on the positive side, is saying what really happened, how things went well. In some cases, you may not have had anything to do with the project turning out well. That's the unfiltered truth. Giving the right people praise and accolades and respect for what they've done, recognizing how things broke your way that you couldn't control that really turned out in your favor. Maybe you did do well, And some of you, when it comes to saying what you mean, you tend to filter yourself so much that you even withhold praise about you. You don't even recognize yourself publicly when you've done a good job. And that unfiltered method of communication allows you to get out the truth. If you did well, I'm going to say it. If you didn't do well, I'm going to say it, right? It's all about just meaning what you say and say what you mean. And the benefit for that is when people hear what you have to say and you say what you mean and you don't have to re-edit what you said, there's no confusion. There's no adjustment period in terms of people clarifying, did you really mean that? That prevents you from being frustrated about people not respecting you or taking you seriously. Some people get they just get so frazzled because they feel like people don't understand them. But the truth is, what you're thinking may not be what you're actually saying. The only thing people can understand and interpret is what you're actually saying. You have to convey your message. It will reduce the amount of stress you feel when you feel like your team does not follow your direction. Sometimes it could be possible that you're not giving clear direction based upon what you're actually thinking. It might be helpful for you to practice saying what you mean, saying how you feel, saying what you think. But I've learned over the years when it came to writing and conveying a message through an essay, a paper, an article, a book, etc., the first step, you have to know obviously what you want to write about, the topic, the general topic. But the step right after that is to just blurt out everything that comes to mind relative to that topic. And you do that on paper without thinking, without filtering, without trying to add big words, without trying to sound poetic, without trying to have the most perfect sentence structure or paragraph structure. Get every thought out first. And perhaps for those of you who are struggling to say what you mean and mean what you say, start journaling and just spit it out. Spit out whatever the truth is in its current unfiltered form, the raw form, and then take a look back at it afterwards to find better ways to say it if that's something that concerns you. I have advised my students to take this approach, to just get it out and then edit for poetry, to edit for structure, to edit for whatever else you're trying to do to get that assignment submitted. That pretty stuff, that corrective action you take is after you get it all out. And what you find as you continue to practice that is that you get good at saying what you mean, meaning what you say, and getting to the point in a quicker way, in a more efficient way. And people, they appreciate you for it. Here's another thought that Josh shared. Use simple communication. Sometimes we can use so many words, so many acronyms, so many big words that very few don't know, words that are irrelevant to the topic, irrelevant to the culture, that people feel like they're just disconnected from what you're saying at all. You know, in your industry, there are always going to be buzzwords. There are always going to be acronyms. There are always going to be keywords that are unique to your industry. It's your obligation as a professional to ensure that as you communicate with your team, you're utilizing those words correctly and simply. And if you're introducing something new to your team, you need to spend the time, the quality time, teaching them the meaning of these words, the new words. At the end of the day, when you're communicating, the idea is to communicate as simply as you possibly can. The goal is to teach and to transfer thought as simply as you possibly can. To transfer directions as simply as you possibly can. There's so much Josh shared here, but I'll share one more with you. And he says to study your own body language. Man, we just got finished talking about say what you mean what you say, right? And there are times where you say things and you really believe it, but your body language says the complete opposite of what the words are saying. Your body language are the complete opposite of what's coming out of your mouth. And the funny thing is, people who are watching you and listening to you at the same time are getting mixed messages, because the words are saying one thing, but your facial expressions, your body posture, what you do with your hands, how your eyebrows flinch or your eyelids kind of flutter, or the smirk on your face, or the flare of your nose, or the wrinkling of your forehead, how all of that conveys a different message. The crossing of your legs may convey a different message than what your words are actually saying. And people are known to believe what they see versus what they hear. This is true in leadership circles, where people follow what they see versus what they hear. And in communications, it's true that people are going to understand what you're conveying based upon what they're seeing. Here's another piece about body language that does get talked about, but it's worth saying again. The words you say is one thing, and the tone with which you communicate it may convey a different message. You may be saying something good and positive, but the tone doesn't come across well, or respectful, or tactful, or engaging. The tone choice can cause friction within a communication exchange. It can disrupt a relationship. It can disrupt the flow of understanding. It can disrupt team chemistry. It can disrupt a culture because of the way you decide to say it. I mean, and this goes for both ways, right? Where you can sound so rough and gruff when you're trying to sound positive, people aren't hearing the positivity. Conversely, you can sound so encouraging and so sweet when you're really trying to convey something serious and intentionally challenging to the team. And because of the sweet tone with which you're communicating, or the tone that has more of a question mark to it, people are going to not take you as seriously as you intend them to. This goes back to say what you mean what you say, right? Part of that is tone. All of this impacts communication. But notice this. All of this impacts your leadership. How people feel about you, how people are influenced by you, how people decide to invest and buy into your culture, into your way of thinking, into your philosophy, into your way of operating. All of this, your communication style, choices, the choices you make around communication, it matters, because people decide what to do and how to respond to your leadership based upon your communication. This is some interesting stuff. There's so much more Josh shared in this article, and I think that I may continue to explore some of this with you, because communication it can change things for the good or for the bad. And your leadership it's reliant upon good quality communication. This is Dr. William Clark for Leadership Conversations. I hope you find this helpful. And as always, we'll see you in the next show. Have a good one.